As summer school falls into full swing at Strickfield High, the bodies are starting to pile up. Or are they? It seems whenever someone falls to an unlikely end, there's no trace left behind. But what could this mean as we head to our prom night of the dead?
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hey, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. And this week I'm very excited to bring you the second installment of the Prom Night of the Dead mini-series. It's a good one, and I gotta tell you, there's something so fun about ending every single week on a cliffhanger. So if you missed last week's episode, you may want to give it a listen. And of course, there'll be a recap at the beginning just to get you up to speed. But before we get to all that fun, I just want to say a humongous thank you to you out there for listening. It's the dead of summer, and most normal folks don't want to listen to scary stories all year long, but you are all here with me, enjoying the spooky, and I appreciate it. But I'd like to ask for a little favor from you all. If you enjoy what we're doing a ton, head over to your favorite podcasting app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whichever, and leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps new people discover the show, and it doesn't cost you anything. In fact, we have over 160 ratings on Apple Podcasts and over 200 on Spotify. When the Halloween season comes along and people discover the program, as they often do, and they see all those ratings, they'll know they're in the right place. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our Patreon, which you can find at weeklyspooky.com. For as little as $1 a month, you support the show directly, and you get a bonus episode every month, along with some other fun and spooky bonuses to come. So check that out at weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. We really do appreciate it. There are 90 of you backing us right now. Can we make it to 100? It would mean a lot to me. But now it's time to head back to Strickfield after these quick words. Previously on Prom Night of the Dead. A few months ago, the junior and senior prom at Strickfield High School took place. It became a night to be remembered when Laura Lee Hardy murdered many of her fellow students, including Lillian Johansson, who was the frontrunner for the junior class prom queen crown. 2 months later, students are taking summer school for various different reasons. Emotions get stirred up when Ronnie Brunswick arrives. As Ronnie starts trouble with her fellow students, she lets it be known that Lillian's body disappeared from the hospital morgue not long after her murder. At the Feltner County Fair, Regal Fairlane meets up with her summer school teacher, whom she's having a forbidden love affair with. After the fair closes, the ghost of Lillian Johansson greets the lovers and makes them flee. Regal and Austin escape into the haunted house attraction and become separated, only for Regal to later find her dead lover as part of a scene. And now, Prom Night of the Dead, Part 2, by Rob Fields. First week, Tuesday. Regal Fairlane couldn't sleep the night before. After finding Mr. Zachary's body, she made an anonymous phone call to the police. From there, she hid and waited. After the police searched the closed haunted house attraction, Regal saw they hadn't found Austin's body. But how could that be? It was right in the open, where anyone going through the attraction could have easily seen it. After the police had left, Regal snuck back into the haunted house and went to the scene with the hangman's gallows. She was completely beside herself when she didn't see the body. There wasn't even any sign of blood. When she heard noises, she quickly made her escape and went straight home. She was still replaying the previous night's events again and again in her mind as she walked into Strickfield High School. She walked to room 23 and saw the other students waiting. Naturally, Austin never appeared. It wasn't long before Principal Van Diest came into the classroom to report that Mr. Zachary had called in and quit. Since summer school had just started, the principal gave Regal the option of transferring to another class. She chose to join room 12 with him. At the break, Regal walked into the library and found the same people from the day before, looking at the yearbook. Then she approached Randy Ullery and Cameron Johansson. "Did you see Lillian?" Regal shakingly asked Cameron. Cameron looked at her as if she'd lost her mind. "Excuse me? What?" Regal explained seeing Lillian's ghost at the Feltner County Fair the night before. She didn't mention seeing Mr. Zachary or his death. Cameron immediately lashed out and shoved Regal to the floor. Cameron pointed down at her. "Lillian is dead, you dumb bitch." "What's going on in here?" a voice called out. Everybody looked to see Principal Matthew Van Diest walking in. He extended his hand and helped Regal to her feet. The principal, who was also teaching the summer sessions of government and economics, looked right at them. "Fuck off, asshole," Ronnie Brunswick told him. Van Diest didn't even look at her as he pointed her way. "Can it, Rhonda?" Then he looked at Cameron and Regal. "Now, what's going on?" The principal listened as the two girls explained their sides. When they finished, he just sighed. "It's really too early in the term for this. I'll forget this confrontation happened. This time. Next time, you're both out of summer school and each get an F. Understand?" When both girls nodded quickly, Van Diest pointed to the door. "Back to class." Second week. When Principal Van Diest gave the class a break, Ronnie Brunswick went outside and lit up a cigarette. She continued to think about Derek Masters. She couldn't understand why a plain, ordinary kind of guy was interested in a hood like her. He had talked to her every day at break. He'd even taken her home to Strickfield Cove at the end of class. Derek would soon be outside to talk to her again. At this point, she decided she would definitely go out with him, if he asked her. Instead of Derek coming to meet her, it was Principal Van Diest. "Rhonda Brunswick, how many times have I told you? How many times? Smoking is not allowed on school property." Ronnie didn't look at him. "And how many times I gotta tell you? Fuck off, I'll fucking smoke if I wanna." Van Diest grabbed her and turned her to face him. That was when Ronnie thrusted her switchblade almost to where the tip would touch Van Diest's throat, making him release her. "Don't you ever put your motherfucking hands on me, you son of a bitch," Ronnie hissed. Then she smiled. "Oh, you want to expel me and send me to prison? Do it! Fucking expel me! Give me a reason to finally kill your ass." She was shaking with rage. "I fucking hate you!" Principal Van Diest slowly shook his head. "Hate me all you want, Rhonda. Or did you forget you were caught in a rather compromising position with Bill Baxter in the locker room shower, on school property? You both knew better." Ronnie clenched her teeth hard as she raised the switchblade. But Ronnie suddenly felt gentle arms wrapping around her from behind. Then Derek Masters said softly in her ear, "Don't. You're going to regret it for the rest of your life." He ain't worth it. "Let me go, Derek," she choked out. Principal Van Diest quickly snatched Ronnie's wrist and took her switchblade. "I'm not expelling you, Rhonda. You need to understand there are better ways to get ahead in life than selling drugs. Or your body." Ronnie laughed. "You think finding me and Bill fucking in the school shower is why I'm pissed at you? It's the way you look at me, always undressing me with your eyes." When Derek let go of her, Ronnie moved to Van Diest. "You saw me wet and naked that day. You're supposed to be the principal here, not a fucking pervert. Way I'm seeing it. You can see me naked, then I'm doing what I fucking want. So fucking expel me. You know you wanna." Van Diest shook his head. "Nope. If you want to leave, I'm not stopping you, but you'll be on your way to prison. Remember your probation, Rhonda. Face it, you're going to stay right here and finish my classes with passing grades. Then, and only then, you can go." Ronnie screamed with rage. Then she turned and ran off. Derek just looked her way, but didn't give chase. Principal Van Diest sighed. "Please go find her, Derek. Bring her back to class." "Yes, sir," he replied. Ronnie tried to go into the gymnasium, but every door to it was locked. After learning Ms. Decker, the drama instructor, had the gymnasium reserved for some secret event Principal Van Diest approved, Ronnie descended the basement stairs and went into a back room. She pulled a compact out of her denim booty shorts and opened it. She removed a razor blade, a mini straw, and a vial of cocaine. After making 2 lines with the razor blade on the mirror, she did them both using the straw. Ronnie felt ashamed that Derek had learned about how she got busted with Bill Baxter. It was in the boys' locker room an hour after school. Van Diest had gone in to talk to Coach Brackett. Not seeing him in his office, Van Diest heard the showers going and some strange noises. Knowing there were no sports practices that day, he crept back and found Bill pounding Ronnie in a quite revealing sexual position. Van Diest knew that Bill had paid her for sex, but couldn't prove it. Also, the principal had seen Ronnie dripping wet and in all of her naked glory. That was just before prom night. Ronnie really wanted to kill Principal Van Diest in the worst way. As she contemplated doing 2 more lines of cocaine, she heard some strange noises. She got angry and put her compact away. Then she came out and saw the male shape. "Get fucked, Van Diest!" Ronnie rushed at him with her fist cocked, ready to lay him out. Then she leaped at her target, only to gasp and quickly pull her fist back. Derek Masters easily caught Ronnie and gently lowered her back to her feet. Diffused by Derek yet again, Ronnie shamefully turned her head away. "I'm sorry you heard what Van Diest said." "No judgments," he replied softly. Ronnie gazed at him. "Why are you so fucking sweet to me?" She stepped back and pointed up. "You can have any of them cunts upstairs. What makes me so fucking special?" In the dim light, she saw Derek smile a little. Then Ronnie shook her head quickly as he gently backed her into a corner. Her heart felt ready to explode in her chest as she smelled his intoxicating scent. Then she gasped as Derek pressed his lips to hers and finally kissed her. Ronnie moaned and kissed him back. Oh, how she wanted and waited for this moment. Derek and Ronnie held each other as they made out for several minutes. Deep down, Derek knew that Ronnie was trouble. But from the first moment he had seen her, he had lost his heart and vowed to win her. Maybe knowing that Ronnie was a tortured soul was what had drawn him to her. It didn't matter to him what Ronnie was or what she had done. He cared deeply about her and wanted to save her, even if from herself. When they finished kissing, he caressed her cheek Then he kissed her again, a longer one this time. He felt Ronnie shaking in his arms as she kissed him back with the same fire he had kissed her. When they finished this kiss, Ronnie was completely under his spell as he took her hand and walked her back upstairs. Soon, they were walking back into Van Diest's class. Ronnie was high both from the cocaine and her elevated emotions, but still coherent. Ronnie caught Regal looking at them. "The fuck you looking at, Preppy?" Principal Van Diest pointed sharply at her. "You will stop with the profanity, Rhonda, and starting tomorrow, put some clothes on before you come to school." "Two things," Ronnie raised her index finger. "One, what I'm wearing ain't against school code. And two," she turned her hand and raised her middle finger. "Fuck you." She smirked. "And we both know you don't want me overdressing, right?" With that, Ronnie and Derek took their seats. Principal Van Diest resumed his class. Week 3, Thursday. Ronnie was again frustrated with Principal Van Diest. After busting her for smoking on school property, again, he decided to make an example of her by calling on just her for the rest of the class. Eventually, this caused yet another heated confrontation between them when she climbed over her desk and attacked him. Van Diest still wouldn't expel her. Ronnie wondered if he truly enjoyed looking at her luscious body that much, or just wanted to put her in her place. Now, she just wanted to lose herself somewhere and enjoy some cocaine. As she passed the library, she saw Primrose Mirren and Samuel Wormton talking to each other as they looked at the yearbook, like they were lovers. If there was one thing Ronnie enjoyed, even more than cocaine, it was all the dirt she found on certain people. She appreciated how the Worm sold homework assignments to people who could afford his prices, especially the reports. He sold A's the same way she sold quality drugs. She knew he did the assignments in his client's style of handwriting. This way they weren't easily traceable back to him. Also, nobody ever ratted him out. Primrose Mirren was certainly a piece of work, always acting so nicey nice to people. The truth was, she was as exploitative as any other Mirren. This was simply her way of doing it. Ronnie hated rich people like the Mirrens, especially Primrose. She had no problem flaunting her family's money to get whatever she wanted in life. Ronnie had to fight and do many questionable things just to be able to live. She was making good money herself with selling premium drugs and even her body, but seeing Primrose showing her cleavage and being all flirty with the Worm was just making her sick. She was even angrier with Primrose than she was with Principal Van Diest. As Ronnie was about to march in and confront Primrose, she was stopped by another student in her class. Bill Baxter was one of her regulars who paid her for both drugs and sex. "What?" Ronnie whispered. "You got him?" he whispered back. She sighed. "Out back." Bill followed her around the library, through the empty girls' locker room, and out the back doors. They went underneath the visitors' bleachers at the stadium where no one would likely find them. She produced a pharmacy container and shook it. "Same number of pills, same price," she said. Bill paid the cash for the high-quality uppers. Of course, Ronnie counted the money before handing over the merchandise. To her, Bill was too dumb to make sure all the pills were in the container. Not that she ever shorted a client. A deal was a deal. Ronnie knew Bill was a loser, but as long as he had the cash for her goods and services. Bill showed Ronnie some more cash as he looked over her ravishing body. "How much for a quick fuck?" Ronnie almost took the money, but she quickly reconsidered. "Get the fuck out of here. I ain't selling no more sugar, especially after getting caught by Van Diest. You said nobody'd find us. Boy, I was fucking stupid listening to your dumbass." Bill growled and put his hands on her shoulders. I said, I want to fuck you. How much? Then he tried grabbing her tight-fitting t-shirt. But Bill was suddenly met with a switchblade under his chin. Keep your motherfucking hands off me, or you ain't ever gonna have to worry about paying for layin' ever again. As Bill stepped slowly back, Ronnie glared at him. I said I ain't sellin' no more fucking sugar. This candy store's out of business. Now, fuck off. Stop right there! A familiar voice called out. When Principal Van Diest saw Bill and Ronnie together, he muttered, You two again. Randy Ullery was with the principal and pointed right at Ronnie. She sold Bill some drugs! Did you, Rhonda? Van Diest demanded. And give me that goddamn switchblade, now! Ronnie was really angry. Fuck off, Van Diest. I swear, I'll shove this blade straight up your fucking ass. But Ronnie hadn't expected Principal Van Diest's own rage towards her. He suddenly grabbed her and made her drop the knife. Ronnie roared and elbowed him. When she went for her switchblade, Randy tackled her. Bill quickly escaped. Ronnie got out from underneath Randy to get to her feet and reclaim her weapon. She turned to Randy and swung the switchblade to make him back up. You're on my shit list, you fucking snitch. I wish to God I'd killed your goddamn Lillian myself. Randy screamed and pushed right at her. He tackled her again and held her down as Van Diest relieved Ronnie of her switchblade. Van Diest, you motherfucker! Ronnie screamed. I fucking hate you! And I'm sick of hearing about you selling drugs at my school! Van Diest shouted back. I'm going to search you now, Rhonda. I find any drugs, you are done here. Hold her down, Randy. Sit on her. But Ronnie was too wily and again wiggled out from underneath Randy. She got up and ran away. From there, Principal Van Diest and Randy gave chase. However, Ronnie managed to hide and lose both of them. Ronnie was still angry at Bill. This is the second time you got me in trouble, Baxter. I'm gonna fucking kill your ass. And then Ronnie stormed off to find Bill. Bill was down in the basement. He was angry at having Principal Van Diest catch him and Ronnie a second time. He was even angrier at Ronnie for not selling him her deliciously sweet body again. He certainly wasn't a looker, and he was a good 50-plus pounds overweight, but having sex with Ronnie still counted, even if he paid her for it. Bitch! He yelled. He hated having to flush the pills he had just bought off Ronnie down a restroom toilet. However, he managed to hold on to 2 of them. He quickly popped them into his mouth and drained the bottle of Coke he grabbed out of the vending machine. He would return to class once he felt the uppers kicking in. Suddenly, everything went dark. Shit, Bill muttered. The lights seemingly came back on. Then Bill turned to the stairway and saw the glowing form of Lillian Johansson blocking the way. You always were such a loser, Bill, the ghost said. You came to the prom and caused trouble, even spiking the punch. What's ironic is that Laura Lee Hardy never came anywhere near you, yet I ended up losing my life. That's not exactly fair, is it? Lillian produced a knife. Let's rectify that, right here and now. Get away from me! Bill wailed as he turned and ran. Bill found himself cornered very quickly. Lillian Johansson was soon on him. Bill was petrified and screamed as Lillian ran the knife across his throat. Then she stabbed him in the stomach, the very same way Laura Lee Hardy had stabbed her on prom night. The last thing Bill saw as he sunk to the floor and into everlasting darkness was Lillian laughing scornfully. Week 4, Wednesday. Ronnie had passed government and was now midway through the first week of economics. Ronnie and Derek left class together holding hands. Derek had finally asked her out on a date. She was already planning to invite him into her apartment at Strickfield Cove when the date was over, and let him ravage her as much as he wanted. As for Bill Baxter, he never returned to class after Principal Van Diest was late to their drug transaction off the football field. As a result, Principal Van Diest flunked him. Not that Ronnie cared, since the principal found no evidence of drugs on her after he'd finally caught her and pulled her into his office. As Ronnie and Derek passed the gymnasium doors, she decided he could have her right now and turned into Derek and kissed him. She backed him up into the wall where they kissed hungrily and passionately. When they stopped, she produced the keys she had swiped from the locked gymnasium. "You wanna?" she purred. Derek answered her by kissing her again. When they finished, she unlocked one of the doors and started to open it. "Stop!" a voice called out. They turned to see Devin Decker approaching them. "The gymnasium is currently off limits and is closed until the end of summer school. I'll take those keys." "What are you going to do? Give us detention?" Ronnie retorted, handing the keys to her. "Like you said, it's summer school." But Derek would prove again to be the voice of reason. "It's okay, Ronnie. Let's just go to Denoyer's Grill." When Derek took Ronnie's hand and interlaced his fingers with hers, she sighed. "Okay, baby, let's eat." But something wasn't sitting right with Ronnie. She turned back to Ms. Decker. "What are you doing here anyway? You ain't teaching no summer school classes?" "If you must know, I'm working on a very special project in the gymnasium," Devin answered, relocking the door. "Principal Van Diest knows. As I said, the event will be at the end of the summer school term. I'd very much love it if you and Derek would attend." Ronnie rolled her eyes. "Fuck that." She glanced at Derek. "Let's go." Derek gave Ms. Decker an apologetic smile as he and Ronnie walked to the main doors. Week 5, Friday night. Primrose Mirren met Samuel Wormton in the alley next to the Strickfield Centennial Theater. She paid him money for an economics paper Principal Van Diest had assigned. After giving her the paper, she looked it over with satisfaction. Then the two of them came together and kissed. Primrose never planned on liking the worm, but even Mirrens are human. By now, she was having sex with him. When they finished kissing, they knew they wanted to have sex again, soon. "My parents won't be home all night," Primrose offered. "Good. Mine sure will be," Samuel replied. Primrose took his hand and they began walking to the Mirren gated community. When they reached an alley, Primrose eased him into it. "It's just on the other side." They were halfway through the alley when their eyes met, and they kissed again. Primrose knew they wouldn't make it to the gated community. As they started to undress each other, they stopped when they heard a strange, eerie laughter. They let go of each other and turned to see the ghost of Lillian Johansson, glowing brilliantly. She laughed as she pointed right at them. "You were there on prom night as one of the competitors to my crown, Primrose. I heard rumors you were going to buy the crown, like you buy your homework." Lillian looked very angry now. "Now, how fair is that? You wanted to take from me, so I'm going to take from you." She pointed right at Samuel. "Die!" And suddenly Samuel cried out, seemingly in pain, yet there was no sign he had been touched. "Primrose!" he choked. Then he fell forward and landed on his face. Primrose lowered herself and checked his pulse. She shook her head quickly. "No, no, no! You can't be dead, Sam!" When the ghost came for her, Primrose screamed and ran for her life. She didn't stop running until she reached her gated community. As she started entering the code to open the side door next to the gate, her phone rang. She looked at the caller ID. Ronnie Brunswick. Yeah? She stammered. Paying a nerd to do all your homework for you's gotta be nice. It's only fair you're fucking him now. What do you even care? Primrose demanded. Because you ain't selling drugs or your body just to make ends meet. You're a spoiled brat who gets everything handed to her by mommy and daddy. Well, Mama Ronnie's gonna give you something sooner than you think. The call ended. After Primrose entered the code and stepped through the gate, there was a rumble. Then it began to rain. She started crying again, remembering Samuel was killed by Lillian Johansson's ghost. Felt almost like a dream. She needed to get home and call the police. And tell them what? Primrose chastised herself. Like they're really going to believe I'm being chased by a ghost. Primrose was soaked by the time she reached her house and walked inside to the waiting darkness. Suddenly, she was grabbed from behind and thrown to the kitchen floor. A female figure in a dark outfit throttled Primrose's throat as she sat on top of her. Her eyes opened wide as she saw the knife the figure held up, ready for the kill. Primrose screamed as the knife came down fast. My spookies! Are you as caught in this and tangled up in this as I am? Well, I may know how it turns out, or do I? But you'll have to wait until next week to find out what's going on at Strickfield High this summer. And is the ghost of Lillian Johansson really wreaking havoc and vengeance? I mean, it's not impossible in the realm of Strickfield that a ghost is killing people. But that killer at the end of today's episode, I don't know. Something was different about her. Well, make sure you're back here next Wednesday to find out what happens in part 3 of Prom Night of the Dead. And thank you all so much for joining me in the fun. These mini-series are a lot of good times. And not only that, they're a reward to you, the listeners who stick around through thick and thin with us. We give you something a little extra that we know you love to sink your teeth into. And I also want to remind you, we're coming up on episode 200, and there will be a very special episode coming just then for all of you to enjoy. But we'll talk about that later. Now I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names on the program, and they are Bobbletopia.com, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Brent McCullough, Gino Lyons, Steve King, Karen Wiemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much, and if you want to help support the show directly and make sure that we always bring the spooky on the weekly, just go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. And if you want to hear your name on the show, just choose any option at $15 or higher. But now it's time for me to get out of here and start cooking up some more excellent content to terrify and titillate you all. And make sure you check out our newest program, by the way, that dropped last Friday, Cutting Deep into Horror, where we dissect the film Hereditary. But now, I'll see you guys next time. For myself, for my executive producer Rob Fields, my producer Dan Wilder, and our composer Ray Mattis, I will talk at you later.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.